Okay, so soil biology begins to go dormant around 8 to 900 parts per million of an input. EC and input are completely different things. If you measure your EC in your soil, there's a good chance that your EC is probably at a 3 or 4, especially if you get your soil biology really going. I've seen ECs as high as 9 with plants flourishing. And because that's the electrical conductivity that the bacteria are producing for your system, right? The initial input, though, like you got to think about it a little bit like static electricity. So initially, when you put your hand in your hair and you start rubbing, there's not a lot of static electricity. You're not going to like walk around and get shocked. But if you start really rubbing your head or you start rubbing your feet on the ground for a couple seconds or a couple minutes and you walk up to your friend, there's a good chance you're going to get zapped, right? Well, that's exactly what we experience when our initial inputs with our water. That's why I actually like to use parts per million or a TDS meter initially when I'm measuring the inputs of the water. You could also use the EC because there's a conversion table. It's no big deal because that's letting me know the electrical conductivity. And that's why never going above 8 to 900 parts per million is so crucial on the initial input because that initial input of salts will make your soil biology dormant because it's basically saying, oh, like there's enough conductivity happening. That's kind of what lets the bacteria know whether to be active or not active based upon electrical charges, right? So when you measure that, you just want to make sure the parts per million aren't above 8 to 900 parts per million. But then after you put it into the soil, if you have a really good soil biology system, like I've said, I've seen as high as 9 EC with the plants flourishing. It's not common, but I've seen it. And maybe the meter was broken, right? Sometimes I have to be able to trust the growers and the information they're providing to me. But in the soil system, it's really easy to get a really high part per million because the bacteria are all moving around. They're all doing their job. They're all producing electricity. So the EC in your soil and the initial inputs, they correlate, but they're not directly related besides of the effects on your soil biology. So yeah, I hope this was helpful on kind of understanding DC versus TDS and how it affects your soil biology and understanding that the EC in your soil reading will be different than the EC of your inputs. So you don't want to adjust your soil EC because then that's basically you flushing your plants. You really want to adjust it from the input of the water. That's why I'm always telling people don't flush, don't overwater, don't do those things because you're messing with the soil EC when really what you want to be doing is regulating the soil EC with the TDS that you give to your plants. And that's why your plants are flourishing right now around 700 parts per million. I mean, they're in bed, but look at them. Some of those plants look like they're 2 feet tall from the top of the pots, but you're giving a very low EC. But if you measured the EC of your soil, it would be much higher, much, much higher.